10 pounds of toxic waste do not sit inside the body the way frightening headlines like to promise, but what does happen, and I want you to hear this carefully, is something far more real and far more dangerous. Year after year, the body begins to slow, the bowels become lazier, the belly grows heavier, the waist thickens, sleep becomes more fragile, and a person starts to feel as if something old and stale has settled inside. Not poison in the theatrical sense, but stagnation, retention, sluggish digestion, water that does not leave on time, food that moves too slowly, a nervous system that has forgotten how to relax even for 1 minute. And that is exactly why many people after 50 look in the mirror and say, "I do not eat that much, so why do I feel swollen, heavy, and tired all the time?" I have heard that sentence from patients so many times that sometimes it sounds less like a complaint and more like quiet despair. What troubles me most is not even the extra pounds themselves. It is that many decent, disciplined, intelligent people begin to think this heaviness is simply age, that this is now their normal state, that a dense belly after meals, irregular stool, short breath on stairs, and that peculiar fog in the head are just the fee one pays for growing older. No. Age changes the body, yes, but it should not steal clarity, lightness, and dignity so early. Very often the real problem is not that the body is weak. The problem is that the body is overloaded and out of rhythm, and once rhythm is lost, everything else begins to suffer quietly behind it. You have probably noticed this without even needing a doctor to tell you. One day, you eat the same meal you ate 10 years ago, but now afterward you feel pressure under the ribs. You wake up in the morning, and instead of hunger, there is bitterness in the mouth or a feeling that yesterday's dinner is still with you. Your clothes fit differently by evening than they did in the morning. Rings sit tighter on the fingers. The face looks puffier. The belly becomes not just larger, but somehow more stubborn, more silent, more resistant to effort. People respond to this with panic and begin punishing themselves. They buy aggressive cleansing teas, dangerous powders, harsh laxatives, extreme diets. For 2 days they feel hope, and on the third they feel worse. The body does not forgive violence, especially after 50. What truly helps at mature age is rarely dramatic. It is usually something deceptively small, done consistently in a way that restores the body's own intelligence instead of trying to frighten it into obedience. And one of the most underestimated tools I have seen over the years is a habit so brief that many people dismiss it before they even try it. 1 minute. That is all. 1 calm minute that can influence the way the abdomen feels, the way the diaphragm moves, the way the intestines wake up, the way tension leaves the body instead of settling into it like dust in an old house. I first began paying close attention to this not because of fashion, not because of some shiny trend, but because I kept seeing the same pattern in practice. The people who did best were often not the ones chasing complicated systems. They were the ones who learned to regulate the body through simple, repeatable signals. A woman of 62 once told me something I remember to this day. She said, "I thought my problem was food. Then I realized my body was eating in a state of alarm." That sentence is wiser than many expensive wellness programs. When the body lives in alarm, digestion slows. The stomach tightens. The intestines become irregular. Sleep becomes shallow. Cravings grow louder. Even posture changes. The belly protrudes not only from fat but from tension, trapped air, poor movement, and a nervous system that never truly stands down. This is where the Japanese habit I want to talk about becomes important. Not because it is exotic, not because it carries some magical secret from far away. It matters because it respects the body's natural design. In Japan, many traditional health practices are built on rhythm, posture, breath, moderation, and daily repetition. Not heroic effort, not punishment, rhythm. This is what mature health depends on more than people realize. The heart loves rhythm. The gut loves rhythm. The brain loves rhythm. And when rhythm returns, the body begins to let go of what it no longer needs, sometimes in the form of less bloating, easier bowel movements, less water retention, less compulsive eating, and gradually, over time, a lighter body. Science has been pointing in this direction for years, even if ordinary people do not always hear it explained in plain language. Slow breathing affects the vagus nerve, and that nerve helps shift the body out of stress mode. When stress mode softens, digestion improves. Abdominal pressure changes. The diaphragm begins to move more fully. The intestines often become more active. The body handles blood sugar more calmly. Cortisol, the stress hormone, stops shouting quite so loudly. This does not mean 1 minute solves everything. Let us stay honest and serious. But 1 minute, done correctly and done every day, can open a door that many people have kept shut for years without knowing it. And I want to ask you something directly, because at your age, honesty matters more than politeness. When did you last feel truly light in your own body? Not dressed nicely, not distracted, not managing somehow, but genuinely light. When did your belly last feel quiet after a meal? When did you wake up without heaviness, without swelling, without that internal fatigue that seems to arrive before the day has even begun? Many people cannot remember. That should concern you, not frighten you, but concern you enough to act. Because the greatest mistake after 50 is postponement. People wait for a worse diagnosis, a more serious symptom, a sharper warning. But the body whispers for a long time before it cries out. It whispers through constipation, bloating, bad sleep, a thick waist, afternoon exhaustion, sugar cravings, and that odd sensation of being full and empty at the same time. If you learn to answer the whisper, you often avoid the cry. That is how wise medicine works, not by chasing disaster, but by noticing the small daily drift before it becomes a fall. And at the very end I will tell you the most important point in all of this, the one many people do not know, and the one that makes the difference between a habit that is performed mechanically and a habit that truly changes the body. That final detail is usually missed, and without it, people quit too early or do the right thing in the wrong state. So stay with me carefully, because what seems simple on the surface is much deeper underneath. For now, I want you to hold one thought firmly. Your body is not asking for cruelty. It is asking for order. It is asking for one clear signal, repeated with calm authority, so it can begin to release what it has been holding for too long. And when you understand that, you stop fighting yourself and start helping yourself. That is when change becomes realistic. That is when a minute stops being too small to matter, and starts becoming the minute that gives the rest of the day a different direction. If this way of thinking speaks to you, subscribe now and leave a like. Do it not for vanity, but so more people who are tired of noise, fear, and foolish advice can find calm, sensible guidance. And keep listening closely, because from here the real work begins quietly, right where heaviness usually starts. And where this quiet work begins is not in the intestines alone, as many imagine, but one level higher and one level deeper at the same time. It begins with the way you breathe when no one is watching. Most people after 50 do not notice that their breathing has become shallow, hurried, and trapped high in the chest. The shoulders lift, the neck tightens, the jaw hardens, and the belly, instead of moving softly with each breath, stands like a locked door. Then the same person wonders why the abdomen feels dense, why the waist thickens, why after food there is pressure, rumbling, gas, and a sense that the body is somehow carrying more than it should. But the body is not stupid. It follows mechanics. If the breath is cramped, the diaphragm does not descend properly. If the diaphragm does not descend properly, the organs below do not receive the gentle natural massage they were designed to receive thousands of times a day. And when this massage is missing for months and years, stagnation becomes not an accident, but a lifestyle. This is why that 1-minute Japanese habit matters so much. At its core, it is built on a simple action. Standing or sitting with a long spine, relaxing the lower belly instead of pulling it in, inhaling slowly through the nose, and then exhaling longer than the inhale while allowing the abdomen to soften and settle. It sounds almost insultingly easy, and that is exactly why many people skip over it. They want something dramatic, something that burns, empties, shocks, cleanses. But the body after 50 does not become healthier because it was frightened. It becomes healthier because it was regulated. A longer exhale tells the nervous system that danger is not present. The diaphragm begins to travel farther. The abdominal wall stops bracing like armor. The pressure inside the abdomen changes. Blood flow to the digestive organs improves. The gut receives a message it has not heard clearly in a long time. you may begin to move. I have seen this in practice in a way that no advertisement could ever imitate. A man of 68 came to me convinced that he had ruined his metabolism. He used that phrase with bitterness, as if he had committed some irreversible mistake. His belly was firm and swollen by evening, his stools were irregular, and he had begun to avoid social dinners because after eating he felt heavy, embarrassed, and sleepy. He had tried fasting, powders, bitter drops, strict meal plans. He was not lazy, he was desperate. I watched him sit in the chair while we talked, and I noticed something before I noticed anything else. He was breathing as if preparing for an argument. His abdomen was held in all the time, even in silence. He did not rest into the chair. He defended himself against it. So before changing his food, before prescribing anything complicated, I made him practice 1 minute of slow nasal breathing with a relaxed belly and a longer exhale. He looked at me with that polite skepticism older men often reserve for simple advice. 2 weeks later he returned and said, almost annoyed, "My stomach is quieter." That was the beginning. Not the miracle. The beginning. Quieter stomach, better morning bowel movement, less swelling by evening, better sleep. Then the rest became easier. There is a reason this happens, and it is not mystical. The diaphragm is not only a breathing muscle, it is a great internal rhythm maker. Every full breath gently changes pressure in the chest and abdomen, helping move blood, lymph, and the contents of the digestive tract. When breathing stays shallow, the body loses part of that pumping effect. Imagine a river that no longer flows with confidence. The water does not disappear, but it grows dull, slower, burdened. The body is similar. You may not suddenly gain 10 pounds of fat, but you may carry retained fluid, trapped gas, sluggish bowels, chronic inflammation, poor sleep, and stress-driven eating. All of this together creates the feeling many people describe so emotionally. I feel full of something bad. Their words are imprecise, but their feeling is real. Japanese daily habits often succeed because they respect repetition more than intensity. This is where many Western minds sabotage themselves. They try to solve a quiet problem with loud action. But mature physiology rewards consistency. A 1-minute breathing ritual done every morning before breakfast or every evening before sleep becomes like turning a key in an old lock. The first turn may feel small. The second feels familiar. By the 7th day, the lock begins to loosen. I tell patients not to judge too early. Give your body 7 honest days, not 7 distracted attempts, not 7 breaths while checking the telephone. 7 days of real attention. Put one hand on the chest and one on the lower abdomen if needed. Let the chest remain quieter and the lower hand rise more. Inhale through the nose slowly, then exhale even more slowly, as though fogging a window but with closed lips or a quiet, controlled release. Let the shoulders stay down. Let the belly stop pretending to be flat. Your abdomen is not your enemy. It is the front wall of a living system that must move freely if you want health. There is a metaphor I often give because mature people understand houses better than slogans. Think of your abdomen as the center room of an old home. If the windows are never opened, if the furniture is pushed too tightly, if the air remains stale, the room begins to smell tired even when nothing is technically broken. Then one day someone opens the windows, moves the curtains, lets air pass through, and suddenly the same room feels younger. Slow breathing is like opening those windows from the inside. It does not tear down the house. It restores circulation. And once circulation returns, many other things improve with less struggle than before. Science supports this in several directions. Slow breathing with a longer exhale has been associated in many studies with improved parasympathetic activity, which is the body's restorative state. That state influences heart rate variability, stress hormone patterns, and digestive function. Researchers have also observed links between chronic stress and altered gut motility, more bloating, changes in the microbiome, and stronger cravings for sugar and processed food. This means the person who feels heavy is often not merely undisciplined. Very often that person is overactivated. Their body is running on warning signals, and digestion suffers under those conditions. When I explain this, people often look relieved. not because they now have permission to do nothing, but because they finally understand that punishment was never going to solve a problem built on strain. And there is something else I want you to hear clearly. Many people at mature age have spent decades pulling the stomach inward. Military posture, vanity, tension, habit, fear of appearing overweight. They do it without knowing. The belly becomes chronically braced, but a braced abdomen is not the same as a strong abdomen. True strength has movement. True stability has flexibility. A belly that never softens can interfere with breathing, pelvic floor coordination, bowel function, and even back comfort. This is why, during this 1-minute habit, I want you to deliberately stop holding yourself together so fiercely. For 1 minute, allow the abdomen to participate in breathing. This is not letting yourself go. This is giving the body back its proper mechanics. Tomorrow, I want you to try something very simple. Before the first meal, stand near a window or sit on the edge of the bed. Place your feet firmly on the floor. Straighten the spine as if someone gently lengthened the back of your neck. Relax your jaw. Breathe in through the nose for a slow count that feels comfortable, not forced. Then breathe out a little longer than you breathed in. Do this for 1 minute only. That is all. Afterward, do not immediately ask whether you lost weight or cured bloating. Ask a better question. Ask whether the belly feels softer. Ask whether the chest feels less crowded. Ask whether your mind feels a little less rushed. Those small changes are not decorative. They are the first visible signs that the body has shifted state. A woman of 57 once described this beautifully after doing it for a week. She said, "By evening, I still had problems, but it no longer felt as if my body was arguing with me." That is a remarkably accurate description of healing. In the beginning, the body does not become perfect. It becomes less oppositional. It cooperates more. The stomach empties more calmly. The bowels become more predictable. Appetite becomes less chaotic. You may even notice that cravings in the late afternoon lose some of their sharpness because the nervous system is no longer demanding quick comfort with the same desperation. Of course, 1 minute of breathing is not a license to ignore everything else. If a person eats too quickly, sits all day, sleeps poorly, and lives on sweets and stress, no breathing practice can erase those choices. Let us remain honest adults. But this habit changes the ground under your feet. It makes the next good choice easier. A calmer body chooses more wisely. A regulated body digests more efficiently. A softer abdomen often moves more regularly. And regularity, especially after 50, is not a small luxury. It is one of the clearest signs that the body still trusts its own rhythm. That is why I tell people not to treat this as some decorative wellness ritual. Treat it as a medical respect for function. You are restoring pressure, motion, and calm where there has been compression, stillness, and strain. And once this first layer starts to awaken, another hidden factor begins to matter even more, something people almost never connect to belly heaviness until it is explained properly. That factor works quietly, daily, and with far more power than most realize. And that quiet hidden factor is not rare food, not a fashionable supplement, and not an expensive procedure. It is the state in which you eat and the way you behave in the first minute after a meal. This is where many people lose the benefit of everything else. They may choose decent food, they may try to eat less, they may even make an effort to breathe more calmly, but the meal itself still happens in haste, in irritation, in front of bad news, in a bent posture, with the jaw working faster than the stomach can possibly prepare. Then they stand up abruptly or collapse into a chair as if the body were a sack to be folded, and later they say, "Doctor, I do not understand why even simple food sits like a stone." But the stomach is not a grinder you can throw life into without consequences. It is a living organ that responds to pace, tension, posture, and attention. After 50, this matters more than most people imagine. I want you to picture the inside of the body at mealtime. The mouth should prepare the work properly. Saliva should begin the first stage of digestion. The stomach should receive food in portions, not in a rush. The diaphragm should be free enough to move. The blood supply should be ready to support digestion, not diverted by stress, arguments, panic, or television noise. If this orchestra plays together, the body manages the meal with dignity. If each instrument is fighting the others, heaviness begins before the plate is even empty. That is why some people can eat a moderate meal and still feel miserable, while others eat almost the same thing and feel fine. Food matters, of course, but the condition of the eater matters too, and with age it matters even more. In Japanese daily culture there has long been a respect for ritual in ordinary acts, not extravagance. Order. The cup is placed carefully, the bowl is held properly. The body is not thrown at the meal, it enters the meal. There is wisdom in that. A person who eats as if under attack teaches the body to digest under attack. And digestion under attack is poor digestion. I have often said to patients that the stomach listens not only to what you eat, but to the atmosphere in which you eat it. A bowl of healthy food, swallowed with fear and haste, may leave a worse trace than a simpler meal eaten with calm chewing and an unhurried exhale. Years ago, I treated a retired teacher, 64, intelligent, disciplined, proud, the kind of woman who had managed everybody's chaos for decades and then quietly brought the same tension into her own body. She ate what most people would call healthy food: cottage cheese, soups, fish, vegetables, porridge. On paper, everything looked respectable. Yet every evening she felt swollen, belched after meals, and loosened the top button of her skirt when nobody was looking. She blamed the products one by one. First bread, then milk, then fruit, then soup itself. But when I asked her to describe how she ate, the truth came out. She stood in the kitchen for breakfast, half reading messages, half scolding herself for not doing enough. Lunch was fast. Dinner happened in front of anxious news reports, shoulders rounded, jaw tight, chewing minimal. Her issue was not only what was on the plate. Her issue was that her nervous system never sat down to eat. I asked her to do 2 things for 7 days. Before each meal, 1 slow breath with a long exhale. During the first few bites, put the spoon down between mouthfuls. And after eating, do not sink into the sofa at once. Remain upright for 1 minute. Shoulders relaxed, neck long, walking slowly if possible. She came back and said something very striking. The food has not changed much, but it no longer lands in me like a brick. That sentence contains more physiology than it seems. Here is the science in plain language. When you chew more thoroughly, the stomach receives smaller, better prepared material. When you eat slower, hormones connected with fullness have time to signal the brain. When you remain upright after a meal, gravity helps the stomach empty more naturally, especially when there is no major structural disease. When your torso is not sharply compressed, the abdomen has more room, pressure is distributed better, and reflux or upper belly discomfort may lessen. And when you do not flood yourself with stress while eating, the body is more likely to release digestive juices and maintain smoother movement through the gut. None of this is glamorous, but neither is waking up every morning with a hard abdomen, a bitter mouth, and no appetite for life. This is why I want you to stop treating meals as background activity. After 50, every meal is information. It tells the body whether the world is safe enough to digest. It tells the brain whether there is scarcity, haste, or calm. It tells the intestines whether they should move with rhythm or with confusion. People think the body only reacts to calories. No, the body reacts to patterns. And the pattern of swallowing quickly under pressure is one of the most damaging habits I see in decent, hard-working adults. Now let us speak of the phrase toxic waste, because many people are frightened by it, and many charlatans exploit that fear shamelessly. The body has real systems of removal. The liver transforms substances. The kidneys filter. The bowels eliminate. The lungs exhale. The skin participates. Trouble begins not because mythical sludge is hiding in dramatic quantities, but because these systems are overburdened by poor habits, poor sleep, low movement, chronic tension, processed food, too little fiber, too little water, and too much rushing. What people call waste is often a mix of retained stool, gas, water, inflammatory burden, and metabolic disarray. The result is still serious. The language is just often crude. I prefer precision because mature people deserve truth rather than circus language. Yet the sensation people are trying to describe is real. The body feels burdened. Our task is not to fear the phrase. Our task is to remove the burden. A very practical habit for tomorrow is this. Before one meal, just one, do not begin immediately. Put the food down, sit properly or stand calmly if needed, exhale slowly once, then begin eating with the first 3 bites taken more slowly than usual. Chew until the food loses its obvious shape. When you finish, do not fold yourself in half over a sink or slide deep into a chair. Stay upright for 1 minute. If possible, take a quiet walk around the room or corridor. Not for fitness, for function. Do this for 7 days with 1 meal only. Watch what changes first. It may not be weight, it may be less upper belly pressure, less belching, less heaviness in the eyelids, a calmer evening, better regularity the next morning. These are not tiny victories. These are the body's early thank you notes. I remember a widower of 71 who laughed when I explained this. He said, "At my age, doctor, you want me to learn how to sit and chew?" I answered him, "At your age, it is precisely time to learn not to insult the organs that have carried you this far." He laughed harder, but he did it. After 10 days, he admitted that for the first time in months he did not dread dinner. He still had habits to change. He still liked large portions. But the dread was gone. That matters. A person who no longer fears the meal can finally build health instead of merely enduring symptoms. There is also a deeper emotional truth here. Many people over 50 have spent years eating while worried about someone else. A spouse, a child, money, work, parents, duties, grief. They trained themselves to swallow life whole. The body remembers that. It shows up in clenched jaws, hurried bites, digestive complaints, abdominal tension. So, when I ask you to breathe once before eating and stay upright afterward, I am not giving a decorative ritual. I am asking you to return a measure of dignity to one of the most basic acts of life. Food is not only fuel, it is a daily conversation between the world and your body. Let that conversation become less harsh. And yet, even when breathing improves and meals become calmer, many people still remain heavy for one simple reason. The body receives no clear signal to move fluid, wake the bowels, and use the large muscles that protect metabolism. This next layer is so simple that people often postpone it for years while searching for something more impressive. Meanwhile, the waist thickens, the knees stiffen, the morning becomes slower, and the intestine waits for help that never comes. That is why what comes next is not an athletic trick. It is one of the oldest medicines available to any human being, and still one of the most neglected. If this is giving you a more honest view of your body, subscribe and leave a like now. Not out of habit, but because clear guidance is rare, and many people are tired of being sold panic instead of sense. Stay with me, because the next step is where the body begins to stop storing and starts remembering how to release. And this is where I have to be a little strict with you because by this point many people nod in agreement, breathe more calmly, try to eat with more attention, and still remain chained to the chair for most of the day. Then they are surprised that the belly stays heavy, the legs swell by evening, the stool remains irregular, and the body continues to feel as if it is storing everything and releasing nothing. But the human body was not designed to clear itself lying down in comfort from morning to night. It was designed to move fluid, lymph, blood, air, and intestinal contents through motion, not punishment, motion, calm, repeated, faithful motion. That is why this 1-minute Japanese habit works best when it does not end with the breath alone, but flows naturally into a brief act of walking, especially after waking or after meals. Many older people hear the word exercise and immediately think of strain, sweat, special shoes, aching knees, and some cheerful young instructor who has never spent a winter with a stiff back. I understand that resistance, but what I am describing is not sport. It is a signal to the intestines that the day has begun, a signal to the muscles that glucose should be used, not stored, a signal to the veins and lymph channels that fluid should move upward instead of settling in the ankles and abdomen, a signal to the brain that the body is alive, not parked. 1 minute of calm breathing opens the internal gate. A few minutes of walking tells the whole system what to do with that opening. This is one of the simplest and most reliable observations in mature medicine. People who walk consistently, even modestly, often have better bowel regularity, steadier blood sugar, less fluid retention, less abdominal pressure after meals, and a more stable mood than people who remain sedentary and then hope a pill or a tea will solve everything. The intestines respond to movement. The diaphragm and abdominal wall work better in a moving body than in a collapsed one. The large muscles of the legs act almost like pumps, helping return blood and fluid. The body, when gently mobilized, becomes less swamp and more stream. I once treated a man of 73 who insisted that his problem was poor digestion. And he was not entirely wrong. He was bloated, constipated, and forever searching for the right supplement. His kitchen shelf looked like a small pharmacy. Enzymes, powders, herbal mixtures, mineral drops, tablets for this, capsules for that. Yet when I asked how much he moved, he answered with perfect sincerity, "Doctor, I am retired now. I have earned rest." Rest is not the enemy, but excessive stillness becomes decay dressed as comfort. This man woke, drank tea, read the news for an hour, ate sitting down, remained sitting, then moved only in short fragments throughout the day. His bowels were not merely slow, his entire rhythm was slow. I asked him to keep his breathing minute in the morning and then walk indoors or outdoors for just 5 to 10 minutes after breakfast, at a pace that felt dignified, not theatrical. He resisted. 2 weeks later he said, with visible irritation at being proven wrong, "It seems my insides are less lazy when I walk." Exactly. His insides were waiting for motion, not another bottle. There is good science behind this, and it deserves plain words. After eating, light walking can help reduce the rise in blood sugar, especially in older adults whose metabolism no longer forgives inactivity as easily as it once did. Walking also encourages stomach emptying and intestinal motility in many people, provided there is no severe medical condition preventing it. Regular movement improves insulin sensitivity, and that matters because unstable blood sugar drives fat storage, cravings, inflammation, and fatigue. Even the microbiome, the community of organisms living in the gut, appears to benefit from an active lifestyle. A sedentary day is not neutral. It is a message. It tells the body to conserve, to hold, to slow. After 50, the body listens to that message very quickly. This is why people often feel that mysterious heaviness around the waist, even when they claim they do not eat much. Sometimes they truly do not eat very much, but they move far too little. The muscles become underused, the posture folds, the breathing shrinks, the intestines hesitate, and the body becomes efficient in all the wrong ways. It stores, it retains, it stiffens, it learns smallness. Then a person mistakes that gradual shutdown for ordinary aging. It is not ordinary, it is common, yes, but common and normal are not the same thing. In Japan, daily life has traditionally included more incidental movement than many modern households allow. Walking to shops, floor-level sitting and rising, routine household activity, short, repeated bouts of motion woven into the day instead of one heroic act followed by 10 hours of stillness. This pattern matters. The body prefers frequent reminders. It does not need to be shocked into effort. It needs to be invited into circulation again and again. You do not clean a room once a month by opening the window for 5 seconds. You air it regularly. Your body is similar. 1 minute of breathing without movement afterward is helpful. 1 minute of breathing followed by a few minutes of walking becomes far more powerful because the signal is completed. There is a metaphor I use with patients who love gardening. Think of the body after 50 as soil that can still produce well, but only if it is not compacted. Compact the soil, and water cannot pass properly. Roots struggle, air disappears, and the ground begins to fail silently. Movement loosens the soil from within. Breathing is the first rain. Walking is the hand that gently turns the earth. Suddenly, things that seemed stuck begin to move. That is how many people describe the change. Not dramatic weight loss in 2 days, not fairy tales, just this very important sentence, "Doctor, I feel less stuck." That is the sentence I trust. A woman of 61 once told me she hated exercise, and I believed her immediately. She was not lazy, she was tired. Years of caregiving had drained her, and every health recommendation sounded to her like another demand. So I gave her something smaller and kinder, but still exact. Each morning, after her 1-minute breathing habit, She walked through the apartment for 6 minutes before sitting down fully for the day. After lunch, she walked for 5 minutes instead of clearing the table and collapsing into a chair with her phone. After 7 days, she noticed less swelling in the fingers by evening. After 2 weeks, she said the bowels were more punctual. After a month, her face looked brighter, and she said something I hear often when the body begins to recover. I am not fighting myself from morning onward. That is not a poetic sentence. That is clinical progress. Tomorrow, I want you to do something concrete. After your 1 minute of calm breathing, do not sit back down immediately. Walk. Around the room, down the corridor, onto the balcony and back, outside the building if you can do so safely. Keep the shoulders soft, the jaw unclenched, the pace steady. Do not turn it into ambition. Let it remain medicine. Then, after one main meal, especially breakfast or lunch, repeat a shorter version. Even 3 to 5 minutes matter more than people assume. And again, give it 7 days. Mature physiology respects repetition. The body wants proof that this is now your pattern, not a one-day performance. Now, let me speak honestly about the phrase, flush 10 pounds. Rapid weight changes in a few days are often water, bowel contents, and swelling rather than true fat loss. That does not make them meaningless. On the contrary, if a person has been constipated, inflamed, retaining fluid, eating too fast, and barely moving, even a reduction in that burden can change how the body feels, how clothes fit, how blood pressure behaves, and how a person sleeps. But let us not be childish. Real fat loss takes time. What changes quickly is often the internal traffic. Less backup, less retention, less puffiness, less fermentation in a sluggish gut, less evening abdominal pressure. These changes can be deeply encouraging because they show the system is responding. They are not an illusion. They are just not the whole story. And the whole story requires that the large muscles be invited back into daily duty. The calves, thighs, hips, and back are not decoration. They are engines. When they remain idle, metabolism declines, balance worsens, circulation stagnates, and even the intestines seem to lose confidence. This is why older adults who keep walking often age very differently from those who sit too much, even when both have their share of diagnoses. The walker maintains conversation with the body. The sitter gradually loses it. There is also something deeply human here. Walking gives the mind a rhythm that sitting does not. Many digestive complaints are entangled with worry. A brief walk after the breathing minute becomes more than physical motion. It tells the mind, we are not trapped. For some people, that is the first real feeling of agency they have had in months. Not a complicated program, not a severe diet. Just breath, then step, then another step. It sounds small. It is not small. It is civilized medicine. But even with breathing, calmer meals, and walking, one stubborn obstacle often remains. People carry inside them a daily irritation they barely notice anymore, and that irritation keeps the body inflamed, hungry, swollen, and slow. It hides in ordinary food and ordinary habits, and it is one reason the abdomen remains thick and tired even when a person is trying. Once you understand that layer, many confusing symptoms suddenly make sense, and that ordinary irritation, the one so many people stop noticing because it has become part of daily life, is often what keeps the body from ever fully calming down. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is the constant excess of sugar that keeps insulin high and appetite unstable. Sometimes it is too much ultra-processed food, soft and easy to overeat, which fills the mouth quickly and leaves the cells strangely unsatisfied. Sometimes it is the habit of eating late, then lying down with a loaded stomach and expecting the body to repair itself through the night. Sometimes it is the quiet inflammation that grows when sleep becomes shallow, when stress becomes permanent, when movement disappears, when the gut is forced to work in confusion day after day. People call this just getting older. I do not. I call it a body that has been living under pressure for too long and has begun to show the cost. This is why the most important point, the one many people do not know, is not the breathing alone, not the walking alone, not even the calmer way of eating. The real secret is that the body lets go only when it feels safe enough to stop defending itself. That is the center of everything. A defended body holds on. It holds water. It holds tension. It holds stool. It holds fat more stubbornly. It holds cravings more tightly. It holds the belly in a state of guarded heaviness. But when the body begins to trust its rhythm again, it starts to release. That release may show itself first in a quieter abdomen, then in more regular mornings, then in less swelling, then in better sleep, then in a looser waistband, then in a lighter face, then in a calmer appetite. People want to begin with the scale. The wiser person begins with function, because function is what creates lasting change. I want you to hear that with complete seriousness. After 50, the body does not respond well to violence. It responds to steadiness. This is why so many harsh methods fail mature adults. Crash diets, cleansing extremes, punishing workouts, miracle powders, dramatic fasting without judgment or medical sense. These methods may create a temporary drop on paper, but they often leave behind fear, rebound eating, fatigue, dizziness, constipation, worse sleep, and disappointment. Then the person blames themselves, when in truth the method insulted the physiology. The body was never meant to become healthy by being cornered. It becomes healthier when the signals of daily life become clear, respectful, and repeated long enough to be believed. That is what this 1-minute Japanese habit truly represents. Not magic, not folklore, not a trick. It is a doorway into a different state. 1 minute of calm breathing tells the nervous system to stop sounding the alarm. A brief walk afterward tells the muscles and intestines to wake with dignity. A calmer meal tells the stomach that food is arriving in order, not in chaos. A slower first minute after eating gives the abdomen room instead of compression. More thoughtful food choices reduce the irritation that keeps the body swollen and hungry. All of these together form one message. You are no longer forcing your body to survive the day as if it were an emergency. And that is why so many people are shocked by what changes first. Often it is not weight. It is peace. They say the belly no longer feels hard by evening. They say they stop thinking about sweets with the same desperation. They say they sleep more deeply and wake less swollen. They say the morning bowel movement becomes more reliable. They say the face looks less tired. They say their rings fit better. They say they no longer dread meals. These are not cosmetic details. These are biological signs that the body is moving out of internal resistance. When that happens, real change becomes possible. Not theatrical change, real change. I remember a man in his late 60s who came to me after years of trying to cleanse himself every spring and every autumn. Teas, strict menus, bitter regimens, expensive powders. He was not foolish. He was frightened of decline. He wanted to feel lighter and cleaner inside, but everything he tried was based on force. When I told him that his body did not need a battle, it needed rhythm, he looked at me as if I had taken away his favorite weapon. But he listened. He began each morning with 1 calm minute of breathing, then a short walk. He slowed 1 meal a day. He stopped eating with the television shouting bad news into his nervous system. He reduced the foods that were clearly inflaming his appetite and swelling. After some weeks, he said something very simple and very important. For the first time, I think my body is working with me instead of against me. That sentence is worth more than any slogan. This is the bonus insight I want to leave with you, because it changes how a person treats themselves. You do not build health only by removing what is bad. You build it by restoring what is missing. And what is missing in many mature bodies is not effort. There has been plenty of effort. What is missing is the right rhythm, the right order, the right pace, the right amount of gentleness combined with discipline. Older adults often do not need more scolding. They need clearer signals. They need a method that respects the fact that the body has history. Your body has carried grief, work, family burdens, interrupted sleep, worry, losses, celebrations, medications, habits formed in other decades, and all the meals eaten in haste because life did not stop to make room for calm. It deserves better guidance now, not more punishment. So tomorrow, do not try to change everything. That is another mistake. People become inspired, then greedy, then exhausted. Begin with the minute. 1 minute of slow breathing with a softer abdomen and a longer exhale. Then walk a little. Eat one meal as though it matters, because it does. Stay upright after it. Reduce the irritation that keeps your body inflamed and confused. Give this 7 honest days, then 14, then a month. Let your body gather evidence that this is your new language. Once the body believes you, it responds far more generously than most people expect. And do not underestimate what lighter truly means at your age. Lighter is not only a number. Lighter means tying your shoes without pressure in the belly. Lighter means getting out of bed without already feeling defeated. Lighter means less swelling in the legs by evening. Lighter means a quieter mind at night. Lighter means your clothing resting on you instead of arguing with you. Lighter means not carrying all day the sense that something stale has settled inside. That is not vanity. That is quality of life. That is dignity. And dignity in health matters. Time matters too, and I want to say this plainly. After 50, and certainly after 60, people often begin living as if there will be a perfect Monday, a perfect season, a perfect set of analyses, a perfect amount of motivation. There will not. There is only the body you have today, asking whether you will continue to ignore the whisper or finally answer it with intelligence. Delay has a price, but so does fear. What you need is not fear. What you need is one dependable act, repeated daily, until the body begins to trust you again. If you have listened this far, then you already understand something important. Health is rarely rebuilt through drama. It is rebuilt through honest, repeated acts that seem small from the outside and become life-changing from the inside. That is how bloating softens. That is how the bowels regain rhythm. That is how cravings quiet. That is how weight begins to move for the right reasons. That is how an older body becomes not young again, but more alive, more comfortable, more responsive, more yours. Hold on to that. Protect your mornings. Respect your meals. Let the breath descend. Let the body move. Stop feeding the inflammation that keeps you trapped. And above all, stop speaking to your body as if it were a stubborn enemy. It has been listening to your life for decades. Give it a clearer message now. Calm, rhythm, space, movement, enough. These things still work, even now. Especially now. Subscribe and leave a like, and share this with someone who has begun to believe heaviness is simply their fate. It is not. The body can recover more than people think when it is treated with wisdom. Start tomorrow. Not harshly, not theatrically. Calmly, seriously, and with respect for the years ahead.